Hey, how's it going? I'm Skitty Beans, and today we are going to be watching a video about a backpacker's worst nightmare. And I have been very interested in a lot of these stories lately, so I thought we could watch one together. This channel that I found, he's really, really good. His name is Kyle Hates Hiking, so be sure to give him a like and subscribe because I think he covers a lot of really interesting topics. I would also like to preface this by saying that I am not a hiker whatsoever. The hiking life is not for me, but I have been really, really interested in these videos. I find them really interesting, sad, scary. It kind of makes me scared if I ever got that wild hair to maybe want to go hiking. I don't think I want to anymore. But I think that some of these stories are kind of wild. So this one is, it's called He Lived, and then in parentheses it says, and died through every backpack's worst nightmare. So I thought that one kind of caught my attention. Guess here we go. So be sure to give me a like and subscribe because that'll help me out a bunch. Let's see what this nightmare fuel is going to be for us.
In May of 2016, thru hiker Ian Crombie was stumbling through the snow in northern New Mexico on the Continental Divide Trail, or CDT for short. He was hiking northbound, and he was very early in the season. So early, in fact, that he was about to make an important discovery and solve a mystery that had dumbfounded the New Mexico authorities since the previous winter. He found his way into a remote U.S. Forest Service campground, and he was probably looking forward to some of the luxuries it provided over a normal backcountry campsite, like a vault toilet, for instance. But unfortunately for him,
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that when you go camping, about the lack of luxuries that you have, like toilets. Oh yeah, because like those people like doo-doo in bags and then put them in trees or something, and then you got to take it out when you leave. Yeah.
he would not be able to use this toilet because what he found scratched into the door probably sent chills up his spine. It
Oh
read,
God.
"Dead CDT hiker inside, call cops, not a joke." And
What? What? Wait. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. How how does this happen? How do you have this kind of messaging? And it's, oh my goodness. I would have to change my pants if I ever came across that.
he would not be able to use this toilet because what he found scratched into the door probably sent chills up his
I
spine.
can't
It read,
imagine.
"Dead CDT hiker inside, call cops, not a joke." And
Oh,
as fate would have it, the man inside the bathroom was named Stephen Olshansky, and he also went by the trail name Otter. This is the story of how Otter lived and unfortunately died through what has to be every hiker's worst nightmare.
oh God, this poor man. I do kind of like that people have trail names, though. I think that that's kind of cool. I think it's cool.
I'm just going to come out and say it right now. This story is this seriously might be one of
Oh
the
no.
most disturbing stories in through hiking history, and it honestly blows my mind that despite the fact that I've been through hiking for so many years now, I had never heard it until a few commenters pointed it out. So thank you very much to
Well,
everyone
pepper
who did
your
that. So
Angus,
with that
people. Here
warning
we
out of the
go.
way, we're going to jump into it here. Although real quick, I do want to say I'm trying to get this channel to 100,000 subscribers. Things have been really popping off lately, so thank you so much to everyone who
He's done
recently
so
subscribed.
well. He has
However, I
way
still
more than
know
that
that most
now.
of you that are watching this right now, yes, I'm talking to you, have not subscribed yet. So please do so and help me get to
Yes.
that goal.
Be
Okay,
sure to
in
subscribe.
2015, 59-year-old Stephen Olshansky, trail name Otter, set out on a southbound through hike of the Continental Divide Trail, which is roughly 3,000 miles in length, and it spans the length of the United States from Mexico to Canada, running through the heart of the Rocky Mountains. The
Oh
CDT is
wow.
part of the Triple Crown of hiking, which also includes the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. Completing all
Hmm.
three trails is a
Okay.
huge deal within the hiking community, and Otter was one of the few.
That looks like a very impressive trail. All three of them. Oh, wow. I wonder I wonder how many times people have done all three.
to have actually accomplished that incredibly difficult feat.
Oh,
But Otter
okay.
wasn't just a Triple Crowner. Otter had actually hiked all 3 of the Triple Crown trails multiple times, which is
Yeah, see, like how many people have done that? I wonder. It can't be that many because I feel like that seems to be like a pretty big accomplishment.
just insane. Like, this legitimately makes Otter one of the most accomplished and experienced thru hikers
Yeah,
in history. He was
yeah. Okay.
clearly not
Oh,
just some schmuck who didn't know what he was doing, went out on a
mm,
hike and died as a result. No,
right.
Otter had way more experience than probably anyone who will watch this video. By
That definitely. It sounds like it. If you've been able to do that multiple times, I mean, man must know. Like he's got to know it all. Very, very knowledgeable.
mid-November 2015, Otter was about to cross the Colorado/New Mexico border and enter the final state of his thru hike. He also must have known that the timing of his thru hike was really pushing it. By
It's got to be at least like 10 pounds, no? Like an extra 10 pounds that you're carrying and then you're hiking that far. I don't know. These people have to be in incredible shape.
must have known that the timing of his thru hike was really pushing it. By November, it's not uncommon at all to have severe snowstorms in the mountains in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. Now, I haven't hiked the CDT, but I do know that by this time of year, mid-November, it's pretty rare for thru hikers to still be that far north on the trail. It's
Okay, so that's good context to know that obviously there's seasons, or I wonder if it's out of season, are you not allowed to go hiking if you're off season, or is it just you have to be like really, really careful?
It's reported that Otter spent a few days at the home of some trail angels, Ben and Jill Whitting, in Chama, New Mexico.
I love that term too. I've heard that in his videos of trail angels. And I think you can go to their house and get supplies and stuff and stay there maybe. I don't know. I love that term though.
Where they actually discussed some impending snowstorms, and Otter even tested out some new winter gear while he was staying with them in town. Now, I wasn't there, obviously, I never knew Otter, but it does seem to me, from all the information I was able to gather, that Otter knew it was definitely possible the weather could get dicey when he hiked out of Chama. And despite this, he decided to hike out anyways. On November 14th, 2015, he was dropped off at
Oh, this is not that far back, 2015. That's really not that long ago.
Cumbers Pass in Colorado. This would be the last time that he was ever seen alive. The day that he left Cumbers Pass, Otter realized that he was in big trouble. At the time, he was keeping a journal, and he was also recording periodic videos on his cell phone to upload to YouTube. In his journal and to his camera, Otter explained
I mean, I get why you hike though, because these views are gorgeous. These are incredible.
his camera, Otter explained how the snowy conditions had been much more severe than he was expecting, and his body was having a really hard time handling it. He
Oh
wrote, quote,
no.
"I immediately began to suffer from terrible weakness. When I stood up, I felt faint. The snow was waist deep in places. I saw one spot of ground, and I took it and pitched," his tent presumably. It started snowing, ending Tuesday, November 17th, late, well over a foot on top.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine trying to charge through that and it's up to your waist? Oh my gosh.
This campsite that Otter was referring to here was roughly 12 miles away from Cumbers Pass where he had started. My understanding is that he rode out the storm in that campsite, and then the day after the snow stopped, he tried to backtrack and get back to Cumbers Pass to bail out. However, his body was feeling so weak at this point, he could hardly even make it a mile, and so he ended up actually
Oh
turning around and going
no.
back to his campsite because he knew the campsite was very well protected and it also had plenty of firewood. This meant that Otter was stuck. He might have been in a temporarily safe spot, but he was stuck, and he had no GPS device, no spot, no cell signal. He had no way to call for help. It's at this
Oh
point that
gosh.
Otter pulled out his cell phone and used some of what was left of his dwindling phone battery to tell the world about his dicey predicament. I can't play the video on here, unfortunately, because I don't want to risk getting a copyright strike, but I will show some screenshots, and I will quote from the video and tell you what Otter said. Otter sighs and says, quote, "I'm in big trouble. I'm snowbound. I tried to hike out yesterday. It's about 10 to 12 miles back on the road, and I can't make it. Now, by this point, I'm sure there's a lot of you wondering, how is it that a man with such vast experience made the decision to hike out when the conditions were so bad and so dangerous? I can't answer that question for sure, but I can tell you in the next part of Otter's video, he clearly regrets his decision, and
I wonder if he thought maybe it wasn't going to be as bad as it was, but since the weather is so unpredictable, maybe he underestimated how much snow or how bad it could possibly have gotten. Because I would imagine if you're that seasoned of a hiker, maybe you just like, I feel like some people just have those feelings, and like they're usually right of like, oh, well, like, yeah, it might be so bad, but it probably won't be that bad, and then it usually always works out for him. So I wonder if he just was like, oh, it's nothing I can't handle or something.
he owns up to it.
I
He
I
says,
could see
quote,
that.
"Let me just say up front, I made a huge mistake. I should have turned back or never come out here this time of year. I really rolled the dice
Oh
and I
no.
lost." Otter then goes on to explain what he's doing to keep himself alive. He talks about his choice of campsite selection, how much firewood he has, and about how he was actually camped right next to Forest Service Road 87, and he hoped that because of this, a random snowmobiler would come through and would be able to alert people that he needed rescue. He then turns his attention to a totally different avenue of potential rescue. Quoting from the video once again, "There's one guy, Ben Whitting. He's the only guy who really knows where I am, and when I walked out the door, he said, 'Otter, you got 10 days. 10 days, if I don't hear from you, we're gonna come looking for you. And he better be a fucking man of his word. If he doesn't do that, I am absolutely toast.'"
Oh no.
Unfortunately, it would be longer than 10 days before Whitting
Oh
would sound the alarms
no.
about Otter. But eventually, on November 29th, Whitting did start asking around online to see if anybody had heard from Otter, and shortly after realized nobody had, and the authorities were contacted. In the meantime, however, Otter remained stuck. He spelled out the word help on the ground, hoping that it would be spotted by a plane. He fashioned some homemade snowshoes made out of branches from the surrounding campsite, and he remained huddled inside of his tent as another severe snowstorm came through. He waited like
Oh
this until
gosh.
December 1st, and with still no
This is like, I don't know if you guys know of the show Alone, but I feel like this was like a unprecedented Alone episode that uh he was not ready for. Which, oh gosh, this seems terrible.
sign of rescue in sight, he decided that he needed to do something else. At this point, his phone was 100% dead, and he was not carrying a paper map. However, before his phone had died, he remembered seeing a campground on his GPS app that was about 3 miles away from him down Forest Service Road 87. It was the Lagunitas campground, and Otter had slept in its bathroom once before on a previous hike. Now, that might sound ridiculous to some of you, but I do just want to have a little aside here.
Oh, so like that's like a thing. People sleep in the bathrooms just to kind of, I don't know, recharge, have a little pit stop, as I'm guessing. Because I don't actually think it's weird. That kind of, I mean, I understand it. I definitely get that. If you maybe just need a little pit stop for the night, I think this would work. And you got a toilet and water, and it's probably warm.
Sleeping in bathrooms at Forest Service campgrounds is actually fairly common for thru hikers to do, especially when the weather is bad. Ultimately,
Yeah.
Otter decided that instead of continuing to wait in his current campsite, he was going to head for Lagunitas campground. He wrote in his journal, quote, "Took a lot of courage to pack up that day. I hiked 200 yards and bent over from total exhaustion in the waist-deep snow. I
Oh
looked
my
back to
gosh.
the place where I had spent 17 days, safe, but a coffin. A few steps, bend over, it took all day. I could not go one step further and was about to just sleep in the snow, and I looked to my left and saw the bathroom. I squeezed inside the icebox shivering, got into my sleeping bag, cranked up the wood stove for a hot drink. In the meantime,
That's cool. I didn't even know that you could have like a little portable wood stove like that. Huh. Amazing. That's actually pretty genius. That's pretty cool. I wonder how heavy it is though. Oh, excuse me. I wonder how I wonder how heavy they are.
the search for Otter was finally getting started. It was known that his next intended destination after he left Cumbres Pass was Ghost Ranch, where he had shipped a resupply box. According to the employees at Ghost Ranch, Otter had not yet picked up his box, indicating that he had either not made it that far or he had just not been there, even though he was planning on it. On December 10th, an aerial search for Otter was conducted. Multiple planes searched 300 square miles of Carson National Forest between Chama and Ghost Ranch, the section of the CDT that Otter had been hiking. Unfortunately, the winter conditions at the time made it pretty much impossible for the searchers to spot
Oh
anybody on the
no.
ground, and thus no discoveries were
Yeah.
made. And coincidentally, that exact same day, December 10th, 2015, a potential sighting of Otter threw the search into a whole new direction. A ranger in Grants, New Mexico, another CDT town about 200 miles southwest of Chama, thought that he spotted Otter at the Forest Service station in town. The ranger did not ask the man what his name was, but he had seen flyers of Otter and thought it was the same person. A few other people in town also had recognized the man, and this brought some relief to the searchers, thinking that maybe Otter was still just
Oh
making
no,
his
but
way south
it was probably just somebody that looked like him. Oh no.
along the trail. But this didn't really make sense to Otter's friends and family. The
Yeah.
ranger who supposedly spoke to Otter had said the man asked for directions to the post office. But as we've established, Otter had already hiked the CDT multiple times. He had been to Grants multiple times, and so he already knew where the post office was. In addition, the ranger described this man as, quote, evasive, which was pretty much the polar opposite of what Otter was like.
Oh, he looks like he's so sweet. Like he was such a sweet man. Oh.
He was described as very social and outgoing by his friends. I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems like this potential sighting in Grants, as well as a few other potential sightings in different towns along the CDT, caused the official search to pretty much stop. Much to the horror of Otter's friends and family. And what's just as horrifying is that on December 10th, when they were searching with the planes, like I mentioned a minute ago, they were this close to finding Otter. On this day, Otter decided that he was done waiting for rescue once again, and he was going to try to make his way out. He had burnt down a wooden shed at the campground, hoping that someone would notice the fire, and he now used pieces of the metal roof to create a pair of makeshift skis. He started skiing away from the campground, and he didn't make it very far before he spotted a potential chance at salvation. He wrote in his journal, once again quoting, "Just as I was at the end of the entrance road, along comes search and rescue plane directly above me, and I was out in the open. They flew over the campground and might have seen the building I burnt down after the storm because it was not snow covered. A couple of minutes later, they turned around and flew back over, wildly waving at them. They had a perfect view as I was out in the open. My only chance left is that they saw me." But unfortunately, the planes had not spotted Otter. He eventually returned to the campground, having not made it very far on the skis, and he wrote, "My gut says they didn't see me. If they don't show up, I'm doomed. It's all come down to this." At the campground...
Oh my gosh, this is, oh God. Oh, this is like so heart-wrenching.
Otter found a large stash of horse feed, and he was able to use it to make a rudimentary version of oatmeal. He stayed in that bathroom waiting and waiting, but no rescue ever came. And by December 17th, it appears as though Otter had given up any hope of being saved, either by rescuers or by himself. He began to take preparations to end his own life, writing in his journal, "My intention is to bring the stove inside later and asphyxiate myself. Probably won't work. Nothing else I've tried has. I intend to enjoy my last day, eat my remaining food, stay warm, and focus on the beauty and good things that were my life, especially my friends." He
Oh my gosh, that is so sad.
tried to follow through, but as he had predicted, it didn't work. The bathroom was not airtight. He waited for a few more weeks, and by sometime in January...
A few more weeks? Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
where he once again tried to end his life, this time cutting himself with a saw, but this too failed. And it seems like he changed his mind after this attempt, and he continued to wait. In his final days, Otter journaled about his life. He recalled pleasant memories from his time on the trail, and he also expressed some regret about consuming large amounts of marijuana shortly before he set out from Cumbres Pass. He wrote,
Nah, man, you shouldn't feel bad about that. That's not even, that's, I don't think that's a big deal in my book. I don't think you should have to regret that.
quote, "I was so stoned on cookies, weed, etc. in Chama, I went on anyway." He wrote about how he did not blame anyone else but himself for what had happened. "This is a situation of my own doing from a life that I led." Eventually, sometime in mid to late January, Otter finally passed away from hypothermia, compounded by starvation and dehydration. He had
Oh my gosh, that is
been at the
absolutely
lower Lagunitas
terrible.
campground
That is a horrible, horrible way to go.
for 4 to 6 weeks and had spent just over 2 additional weeks camped out at his original campsite. And for the coming
Oh my
months,
gosh.
still nobody knew what had happened to Otter. It was pretty much like he had vanished. That was until May of 2016. On May 10th, 2016, CDT thru hiker Ian Crombie approached the Lagunitas campground. He was really early in the thru hiker season, and he had been post-holing through snow for the past 30 miles. When he finally reached the campground, he noticed a
Some of these stories where, I mean, how far these people hike is wild. Like this guy who's been hiking for 30 miles. I can't even imagine. It's impressive.
pair of homemade skis sitting up against the bathroom. His attention then turned towards the door of the bathroom, and this is where things got serious. Scratched into the door of the bathroom was a warning about a dead CDT hiker. There was also a paper note that was stuck to the door which read, "There is a dead human body inside bathroom locked in. It is that of Stephen Olshansky, aka the Otter. Please notify authorities immediately. No joke. Thank you." Crombie was well aware of who Otter was because he had seen missing person flyers for him in pretty much every town along the CDT thus far. Crombie hiked out immediately. He could not get inside the bathroom because it was locked, and a few days later, he reached Chama and he alerted the police. It was no easy task for investigators to make it out to Lagunitas campground. Once again, it was the spring, there was still really bad snow conditions, but eventually through a combination of ATVs, side-by-sides, and just good old-fashioned hiking, the investigators were able to make it to the campground and recover Otter's body.
Oh my God, can you imagine trying to do a recovery like this and those are your only options to try to get to somebody? Oh, gosh. I mean, that's got to be stressful in itself, too.
And his journal. And finally, the hiking community, as well as Otter's friends and family, finally had some answers about what had happened. Once again, Stephen Otter Olshansky was an extremely experienced hiker, one of the most accomplished thru hikers in history. But despite all of that experience, he still made a tragic and fatal mistake on November 14th, 2015. And again, according to himself in his journal and videos, he should have never hiked out that day. I really think that every single thru hiker and prospective thru hiker needs to hear this story. It's a harrowing reminder that you should never get too comfortable with your abilities in the mountains, even if you're at an elite level of experience. It's really one of the saddest and most disturbing stories about a thru hiker that I've ever heard. Once again, I can't believe that I had never heard of this story until just a few weeks ago. My heart goes out to Otter and his friends, everyone he knew within the hiking community, and of course, his family. This story has really stuck with me, and I'm thinking about maybe doing another video where I go through some of the lessons and takeaways from what happened to Otter, because once again, he himself even acknowledged that this situation could have been prevented. So please leave a comment and let me know what some of the biggest lessons from this story are. And once again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you won't miss it when that video comes out. If you've been watching a lot of my videos lately, and especially if you've watched all the way to the end of the video, if you want to go above and beyond, please go to Patreon
There's his
patreon.com/Kyle Hates
Patreon.
Hiking. I'm trying to get my Patreon to 150 members right now. I'm
You can
over
do it.
100, so thank you guys so much.
Nice.
If you're already on there, I really appreciate all of you. Help me get to that goal, 150 members, and thank you everybody for watching.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that was really good. That was really sad. My takeaway is I don't want to go hiking. I would like to go for a nature walk. It can't be more than 30 minutes. So then I can just make sure I'm back home. But this was a really good story though. I think if you are a hiker though, I would say this is definitely one of those more helpful ones of, you know, like of hindsight, and you know, just because you might think you're great or really seasoned, the weather doesn't ever care, you know. Mother Nature, she don't give a F about you or anybody, you know. She's gonna do what she wants to do, so you always gotta be careful. I think that's one of the like really scary things I feel like in a lot of these stories is it's always well, not always, but like there's a lot of stories where it's, you know, a lot of snow, or you know, something just crazy happens with the weather, and I find terrifying in itself, because you never know what kind of weather you could end up with, and I guess things could get sideways really fast, as we can see, you know. But great video, loved it. This was very, very educational, I would say, for sure. Really sad, and just, oh gosh, I can't even imagine being stranded and then going weeks hoping that you were going to get rescued, and almost get rescued, and then they don't see you. And oh gosh, that is just, it's kind of heartbreaking to hear, but oh man, but good story. I mean, he has a great channel, so be sure to give him a follow and like his videos, because he puts out some really, really good content. And if you're a hiker, it looks like he has some good videos for that too. So he is Kyle Hates Hiking. I like his channel name. But have a great day, guys, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'll help me out a bunch. And I'll see you in the next one.